A beautiful Thursday morning to you, and so good to have you on the program today, The Conduit. My name is Omleha Ode, and today on The Conduit, we will be looking around illicit financial flows and utilization of security votes. That's going to be our focus on the program this morning. And The Conduit is sponsored by the Center for Democracy and Development in support with Trust Africa. Illicit financial flows, that is IFFs, is globally defined as the unrecorded and mostly untaxed illicit leakage of capital and resources out of a country. In conceptualizing IFFs, illicit can be equated with illegal. So, IFFs are that illegal movement of cash or the illegal movement of cash or assets from one country to another. The World Bank also used similar descriptions of IFFs in their publications. Broadly, it could be defined as funds crossing borders that are illegally earned, transferred, and or utilized. It is illicit, it is illegal if the flow breaks a law at any point. Collectively, when the cash flow is within, the flow is regarded as corruption. That's when it's within the country, it gets to be regarded as corruption. In line with the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration campaign policy to operate zero tolerance against corruption and block the conduit at which it manifests, however, a recent report released by the Transparency International camouflaged cash, how security votes fuel corruption in Nigeria. It was revealed that federal and state governments spent over 670 million US dollar, which equates 241 billion naira on security votes annually. And this sum up to over 9 times the United States what they gave for security assistance to Nigeria since 2012. $68.6 million and over 12 times the $53.5 million in countering terrorism support that the UK promised Nigeria from 2016 to 2020. You know, peace and security cannot be overemphasized in Nigeria. But these funds, termed security votes, are they embedded in the national budget? Are they audited? What happens if there are legislative oversight, or is there any form of public scrutiny? All of that and more we'll get to find out this morning on the program as we discuss illicit financial flows and utilization of security vote. And we have as resource person in the studio this morning, Adiolu Kilanko. He is Transparency International Defense and Security Regional Program Manager. It's so good to have you on the program this morning. Good morning. Okay, to begin today's discussion, how would you best define security vote and what would be its historical background?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Nigerians. Security vote as it is today, started way back, in the 60s. Let's say, yes, from the 1960s when the head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, granted state military administrators small funds, labeled as security vote that they could use to, deal with civilians elites, in their states to get their buy-in to support the government of the state. So moving forward, it's been part of government year in, year out until we, entered democracy in 1999. And this military relic has also continued unchecked, since 1999 with successive governments increasing funds, that have been allocated to the security vote on an annual basis. Now, the funny thing about the security vote is that you find it in the budget at federal and state level annually, which the National Assembly or State Assembly, as the case may be, will have passed into law. But that's where the power of the National Assembly or State Assembly ends. Security vote is not subjected to the oversight function, which is one major function, the Assembly at state and national level that they are supposed to have as a means of checking or working with the executive arm of the government. Now, the report from Transparency International, which you mentioned, revealed that on annual basis, about 241.2 billion, are expended as security votes, which is about 670 million US dollars. Now, from the statistics, from the which you find in the report, we were only able to look at 29 states in the country, and these 29 states, they spend an average of 580 million US dollars, or 208 billion in total each year as security vote. You see, federal government security vote is about 50 million US dollars, or about 18 billion annually. And there's an estimate that local government security vote amounts to another 42.6 million US dollars, or about 15 billion annually in Nigeria. Now, if you look at these funds that we are expending as security votes, and you compare it to the budget of key defense institutions in Nigeria, you find some worrisome, comparison. Take, for instance, the Nigerian Army budget for year 2017 was 152.8 billion, which is far less than the 241 billion which we have expended as security votes, in that year. If you also put together the budget of Nigerian Navy and Air Force for year 2017, you will find out that the total sum for both the Navy and the Air Force stood at 192 billion, which is also less than the amount we have as security vote. So security vote of 241 billion expended in 2017 is about 70% of the budget of Nigerian police force. So this is just to give us a background of what security vote is, in Nigeria, and the amount of money we are expending annually as security vote.
Okay, will you then classify security vote as legal or illegal?
As it is in Nigeria today, there are no constitutional or legal basis backing security votes in the country. So it's just existing, and the only form of legality that we can attribute to it is because it passes through a resolution of the National Assembly or State Assembly as it is. So really, there is no law or policy that clearly states mechanisms around appropriation, utilization, or oversight of security votes in the country. So as it is highly illegal.
Okay, in as much as you're saying it's illegal, this report, was it made known to the government? Because I know it was across the papers, national dailies and all of that. Will you say there's been any reaction to it?
Yes, there has been. When the report was published and launched, we shared copies with the relevant authorities in the country. At the launch of the report, we got a representative from the Office of the Vice President in Nigeria. We also got a representative from the Office of the Senate President, at the launch of the report. We got also MDAs, including Ministry of Defense, and key directorates, among MDAs in the country. Much more recently, we have shared copies of this report with anti-graft agencies in Nigeria, including the EFCC, the ICPC, including the Presidential Advisory Committee, on anti-corruption in Nigeria. So we have tried as much as we can to share copies of this report, with the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, what will be your assessment of the usage of this vote? I understand you might have said it would be termed as illegal for you, but what will be your assessment of the usage thus far? There is so much in the budget for the agencies that have the security vote attached to them, but what will be your assessment of the usage?
Actually, we have had both positive and negative reports. Anyway, the report reveals that there are both positive and negative uses of the security vote. In a way, because the budget for the Army, Navy, and Air Force are inadequate or have been diverted, or all the list or one reason or the other, you have incidences where you have government or the federation or state governor using their security vote to supplement, provisions of materials, needed by the security agencies, to enable them carry out their job effectively. But also, in a way, because of the opaqueness of the security votes in the country, some politicians can now tritely embezzle the own money. Some can use it to finance, elections, buy votes from people, even pursue election litigation or higher talks, as the case may be. So yes, the report revealed a fair, dimension of both the positive and negative sides of of utilization of security votes in Nigeria.
I'm actually interested in that. That's positive and negative aspect. I'm interested. I want to know more about it. When we say the positive part of the security vote, you might term it as illegal. Some other people might see it as important. But those aspects of it.
Yes, the discussion around security votes in Nigeria, there are two extreme perspectives to it. An average Nigerian will tell you that security votes means official corruption. However, the key beneficiaries of security vote argue greatly that they have had some positive utilization, of the fund. Now, if you look at some case studies which we mentioned in the report, you'll see a story where the Borno State governor is claiming, asserted that they spent about 10 billion, as their security votes over the last 3 years to supply vehicles for military, personnel in the country.
Yeah.
Now, this is the issue. If you have appropriated so much money to security votes, the first thing is that all the security, again, the federal security architecture, all the security apparatus are controlled by the central government. So ideally, the Nigerian army should provide for the personnel, who are going to deliver security, across the entity called Nigeria. So if you now have funds that you have appropriated as security votes, and which is taking precedence over actual releases to key security institutions. Take, for instance, the analysis I gave you before. The budget of Nigeria Nigeria Army for 2017 was 152 billion, and you have a security vote of 241 billion that year. That means if the funds for Nigeria Army have been released and maybe a bit, improved, they would have been able to procure those ammunitions that the Nigerian Army personnel that they needed on the field. They would have been able to procure the vehicles, that the army that they actually required on the field, and there wouldn't have been any reason for the state governor to claim that he has augmented provisions for Nigerian Army personnel to combat insurgency, in their state.
Okay, but generally, what process does the utilization of this security vote actually take?
These are one of the legalities that we're talking about. There is no clear process for its appropriation. You only see it as a line item in the budget, security vote. So you see the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Ministry of Health, all the agencies, they have their line item. You now see under each of them, security vote.
Is it like the miscellaneous attached to budgets?
I mean, we can't even call it the miscellaneous because the budget provisions allow some miscellaneous in your estimates. So it's just like a line item there, security votes, with no clear mechanisms for what they are going to use it for, how it can be audited, how you can monitor or evaluate what it's being used for. Now, another funny thing about security votes is that the reports revealed clearly that at state level, where a large chunk of this money are being expended, once federal allocations, are disbursed to states, the state governor takes first from the treasury security votes, which is at his discretion. So they can just go and withdraw a large chunk of money, as their security votes, which the state auditors cannot check, which the state assembly cannot check. So it's very, very opaque as it is, with no clear mechanism to check what is being used for. And that means someone can actually outrightly divert the money. We were in a state where we were talking, when we mentioned the state, and where the state governor was saying, even if it does not touch other public funds in the state, it will never be poor because he has his security vote. Now the question is, your security vote, is it your personal funds? The answer is no. It's taken from the funds that belong to you and I, Nigerians. It's taken from our taxes. It's taken from our national wealth. So it's not your money. Don't see it as your money. But that's the idea, of the governors of the state. You've seen them recently even agitating to improve or to increase the security vote as it is, because there are pockets of insurgencies, in Nigeria. So it's so opaque and with no mechanisms, no transparency around it, and no way to audit what it's being used for. So it's just at the discretion of whoever, is administering it to use it for whatever he or she likes.
Okay, still at the state level right here. Yeah. How will you get to say it can actually be audited and checked on how they get to spend the security vote?
In recent times, we have some states claiming that they no longer use security votes. A good example is Lagos State, which has tried to set up what we call the Security Trust Fund, which was established by the law of, by the Lagos State House of Assembly. We can clear mechanisms for appropriation of funds to the Security Trust Fund, as well as what the funds can be used for. What that means then is that the State Auditor General, or can go into the books of the Security Trust Fund of Lagos State and establish what it has been used for as part of the public funds of Lagos State. So that's one good way to start. Other states are also claiming that they are moving away from the security vote as it is today. We have Oyo State, we have Illicit State, claiming that they are moving away from what security votes used to be today and moving into what the Security Trust Fund. But it's still unclear whether they have the security vote still existing clearly and maintaining the Security Trust Fund, on the other side. But it would be good to move clearly from the security votes that we have today into the Security Trust Fund, which will have been established by law, in the case of at state level, by the law of the State Assembly, with clear provisions for what the funds can be utilized for.
And who is in the position to actually do this check and balance? Who's in the position to do it?
Firstly, I would say Nigerians. Why I say Nigerians is because we are the basis of this democracy we are enjoying today. And the onus is on us to always check and demand accountability from our elected officers. Now, secondly, the executive, in a way, if they have the political will, to do that, can actually go ahead, and sponsor a law to the State Assembly to reform the security vote as it is. On the other hand, the State Assembly also can come up with a bill by themselves or a motion, seeking to reform security votes in the state as it is. But most importantly, I think Nigerians need to put the pressure on our elected officers at the executive and the legislative arms to reform the security vote as it is today.
All right, thank you very much. We are still with Adeolu Kilanko. In the studio, he is the Transparency International Defense and Security Regional Program Manager. And this morning, we are discussing illicit financial flows and utilization of security vote. It happens to be also in conjunction with a report released by the Transparency International, Camouflaged Cash, How Security Votes Fuel Corruption in Nigeria. I don't know what your opinion is about it. How do you think they get to fuel corruption in Nigeria? It's security vote. It's right there. It's in the budget. Security and peace of the lives of citizens in Nigeria is very important. Your life, my life. And once we come back from this break, we'll open the phone lines for you so you call in and make your contribution to the Conduit this morning. We'll be right back. Stay with us. So good to know you're still with us right here on the Conduit this morning. The Conduit is brought to you by the Center for Democracy and Development in support with Trust Africa. And this morning we are discussing illicit financial flows and utilization of security vote. With our resource person Adeolu Kilanko in the studio, he is Transparency International Defense and Security Regional Program Manager. And the phone lines are open for you just in case you want to call us and make a contribution. What's your idea? What's your understanding of security vote? Do you really think it's actually in effect? Is it being used? We keep complaining of different crises all over the country, day in, day out, different issues, different complaints about security. The phone numbers are 080-911-27352 or 08025-140627. The numbers again are 080-911-27352 or 08025-140627. Those are the numbers for you to call, and you can send an SMS to the short code 33538. 33538. You can send your SMS down there. Okay, back to our resource person before the calls come in. We're talking about coming to the camouflaged cash right now. How will you say these security votes actually fuel corruption in Nigeria?
Okay, let me just quickly point to raise some of the red flags that the report highlighted. In the budget of 2018, the proposed budget of 2018, despite that some institutions have no security-related functions, I will just highlight about 3 or 4 institutions that got security votes in the budget of 2018. National Commission for Museum and Monuments got a total of 20,756,240 as security votes in the budget of 2018. Now you wonder what National Commission for Museum and Monuments have to do with security architecture in the country. You also see institutes like National Institute of Hospitality and Tourism, receiving about 5.6 million as security votes in 2018 budget. National Education Research and Development Council. And we have the report revealed a host of other institutions that does not have any correlation or anything to do with security in the country, receiving security votes. What this then means is that because you can't check security votes, that means the funds are released to Directorate or the NDA in charge of these institutions, and whoever is in charge removes the money completely, taking it back to either the presidency in the case of the federal system or the governor at the state level. So these are some of the ways through which security votes can fuel corruption. Talking about illicit financial flow, you remember that the panel from former South Africa President Thabo Mbeki revealed that Africa, an estimate of $50 billion is what we lose annually as illicit financial flow. Now you think about Nigeria as a state where we have state governors expending about 580 million US dollars as security votes with no means of checking what they are using the funds for. That means whoever they want to launder the money, outside the shores of the country, because it's a process of illegal dealings, they are not supposed, to use these funds, without any means of reporting it back to Nigerians who elected them into the office, or having the institutions that are supposed to check the books of the government, check these funds. So it's a process of IFF that we're talking about. So you see a lot of them taking these funds out to purchase houses in the UK, in US, in Dubai, and other places like that. There's a recent law that the UK government has passed now, which is on unexplained wealth order, which have identified some key Nigerians, who have properties, in the UK, but with them being unable to account or explain how they were able to come by the funds with which they procure, such assets. So this is how security votes can fuel, corruption, and in line with IAF that we're looking at.
Okay, let me take you back a bit. You made mention of the aspect of the National Museum, tourism, and all of that. Those have to do with artifacts and maybe some items that might be useful for research in the country. Coming back to security, will I say in a general perspective, will you say that security has to do with just life? Because I know there's property also. Because you happen to be focusing on life, Nigerians. What happens to property?
When you say security, the duty of every government is to protect the lives and properties of everybody within its territory. So when I'm talking about security, I mean protection of our lives as well as our properties. Now take for instance the issue of a National Commission for Museum and Monuments. In an ideal situation where we have a well-funded Nigerian police force, there won't be any justification for them to have security votes, because ideally they will have been part of security apparatus that are that have been assigned to ensuring the protection of our museums, our artifact centers, and stuff like that. So this is we can people often argue for this because they are not looking at the perspective of the failure of the government to guarantee protection of life and properties of everybody, of Nigerians. Which brings me to one issue. I was listening to your program this morning about on brugamy,
Yes, that's the NSAS
Yes,
movement.
and SARS movement. And I'm saying it's not NSAS alone. It's how do we reform the entirety of the Nigerian police force? Now, take for instance the security votes that we expected in 2017, which was about 241 billion, and the budget of the Nigerian police force for 2017, which was 323 billion. How much of these funds was actually released to Nigerian police force to discharge their duties in protecting the lives and properties of Nigerians? A very low percentage of these funds. Now you now see a security vote that take precedence over, actual releases, of funds to, to the core security and defense institutions. While so those ones languish, while security votes, takes precedence, and these funds you can account for them. So this is how we are looking at how the impact the security vote can have on other security institutions in discharging their duties in protecting Nigerians.
Okay, but does the issue around security vote generate the need for state policing, community policing, as has been canvassed recently?
My outright answer will be no. We should not link security vote to the argument of state policing. State policing is another mechanism on its own, which is a big topic that we can discuss on its own. But what we are looking at for security vote as it is today now is that state governments, who often refer to themselves as the chief security officers of their states, they don't have a battalion that they spend the money on, in their state. So you have a commander, he's the chief security officer without a battalion, without an army. So what is the
I think we'll still come back to your thoughts on state policing. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good to have you. What's your name and where you're calling us from? Hello?
So, Hamza Abdul. I'm calling from Guarimpa.
Okay,
thank you, our resource person there. Yes, definitely security vote as it is today is just a part line of corruption. It's a means for the executives or those who are involved in the affairs of things to get easy money. And with the system we are running, security network, every director of security operations get orders from the above. So therefore, what is the need? What there is, when you look at it critically, there need to have a security vote close to for emergency situations. But like certain situations like above the of the government, that even the nation cannot approach it drastically without the.
Hello, Mr. Hamza Abdul. You might want to readjust your location and call back. Hello? Okay, please readjust your location and call back into the program. We still got time to take calls right here. We're discussing security vote and its utilization in Nigeria. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good, glad to have you. What's your name and where you're calling us from?
This is Abdul.
Please go on with your contribution.
Yes, this is the first time I'm calling on this very program that is done after program.
Good to have you.
Okay, it's lovely. Let me say that the essence of governance is for protection of life, property, and also provision of resources for the citizens. But that section, protection of life and property, has been eroded from the state governor. That is because if the money is given as a security vote, what arms or group of or segment of the security is the state governor and the local government is controlling. Of course, they cannot protect the life and property of people within the low-level grade, except somebody who is a president that has the authority to channel or other military or police to go for the protection of lives and property. Even the police you send to the local areas demands the authority of order of the man at the helm of affairs, the commissioner or DPO thereabouts, before they carry out their job. So in that case, in my view, that money should be stopped. You shouldn't from the local, as in the governors and chairman, on how they can control the security apparatus. But since they cannot, of course, the money should not be given to them anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abdullah Chaja, for your contribution this morning. The numbers are still open, and they are 080-911-27352 or 080-25140627. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's Hamza Abbas.
Please go on, Hamza Abdul.
The purpose of security vote has been defeated in the fact that even governors cannot give directives to the commissioner of police of their state. The orders come direct from the Mr. President, not even the IG. You will see. So the purpose of prompt action or attack from outside is being defeated. And this security vote is cannot be questioned. It's not accountable to the people. So to me, it is an avenue for the authorities to divert this money to their selfish ends for their own personal uses. So I think there is no security vote anymore because the governor or the executive cannot guarantee the security of the people. We've been working on that. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Hamza Abdul, for your contribution this morning. Okay, and back to our resource person, you might like to react to these callers. And then to what extent is the possibility of the security vote? Okay, well, I'll take this call first before you get to react. Hello, good morning. Okay, we lost that call right there, 12 callers back. To what extent would you say there is possibility in ending the security votes?
No, I totally believe it is possible to end security votes. Now, when we say end security vote, the argument is that as security vote is today, it is not clear what we need to use it for, or how we can ensure that what we plan to use the funds for are what we use the funds for eventually. Now, for how long are we going to continue to have funds leave our system like this on annual basis without any means of accountability or check its effectiveness or efficiency? That is why the argument now is for us to have a federal legislation that will outrightly stop what we call security vote as it is today and come up with a recommendation for maybe a security trust fund which will take the place, of course, with clear mechanisms of how we can appropriate these funds, how we can ensure the transparent and accountable use of these funds, and how we can ensure that anybody who is in that office, can tell Nigerians what he or she, has been able to do, with these funds.
All right. Thank you right there for your thought. Okay, would you say there is actually an indirect way of financing terrorism? Because it's termed as a way of financing corruption and all of that. But that will be after this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
Prince Benga.
Please go on, Prince Benga.
Yeah, we are. Your topic this morning is very apt, and I want to bring to the attention of all Nigerians that security votes over time is a deliberate attempt by government. I'm not saying this particular government, but government over the years is a conduit pipe through which Nigeria had armed money as siphoned. Now, you tag a specific amount of money as security vote. Who's to pretend over this vote? Where is the control mechanism of spending the vote? A state governor will stand up overnight and say, okay, we buy 2 or 3 ELOS for a state command of the police, and he will tell you he has spent billions on naira on security votes. I mean, how do you even clarify whether he spent it actually or he didn't spend it? I mean, if there is any need for a security vote at all, there must be a mechanism through which to ascertain whether such money that has been appropriated are duly spent and for which purpose? Is the purpose justified for the spending? These are some of the things we should put in place rather than to have a blanket name security vote, which all these people, they use it for, fueling their election machineries.